Saw all of it. I think people in Washington, D.C. certainly did. But it was interesting. It was on the road. That's always tougher. It was Joe Burrow in a make-or-break for the season game for Cincinnati. It was national TV. By the end of the game, it was a standalone game as an underdog. And the kid goes 21-23, 142 passer rating, 3 total touchdowns. He honestly looked brilliant. Back-to-back games, Washington's offense, no punts and no turnovers. Anybody else watch that game and kind of think to themselves, do we got a C.J. Stroud thing going on where the number 2 quarterback pick is way better than the number 1 pick? Now, Caleb Williams is a much bigger, stronger athlete than Bryce Young. He looks the part, and he's gotten gradually better. But if you start looking at the numbers, most of the time with these young quarterback stars, we knew Burrow, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert first game. Even when Mahomes wasn't playing, you were getting reports and video was leaking on how good Mahomes was as he was sitting backing up. Lamar Jackson, you were hearing reports about, and that's what we had with Jayden Daniels. With Jayden Daniels, you were getting reports very early on. Dan Quinn is like, and usually coaches slow play a young quarterback. Well, it's a process. You didn't get that with Jayden Daniels. Dan Quinn was like, it's kind of blowing us away. Cliff Kingsbury's like, multiple times Kingsbury went to a podium. This is the opposite of what you do with rookie quarterbacks. It was like, yeah, I can't. And this guy does everything right. His accuracy's insane. That's what they did with like Andrew Luck. When Kobe Fleener, a tight end for the Colts, went on record like 2 weeks into camp and said he memorized the playbook in 2 days. I went to Stanford. It took me a month. Like that's what people said about Elway. That's what people said. I mean, we're still waiting for that stuff from Trevor Lawrence. In camp, Washington couldn't control themselves. And Kingsbury's been around long enough to know, don't hype a young quarterback. And Kingsbury couldn't help himself. And Dan Quinn couldn't help himself. These are not like rookie coaches that are over their skis or Deion Sanders trying to change the culture in college. And if you look at Caleb and Jayden Daniels, there are 2 things that are not disputable. Caleb is very inaccurate. Jayden is crazy accurate. It's not like close. And Caleb is very turnover prone. And Jayden never turns the ball over. Like, those are big things. So it's one of those, I mean, C.J. Stroud by his 6th game and Bryce Young by his 3rd, we're like, yeah, I've seen enough to know that guy at 2 is just going to be better than the 1 guy. Now, the 1 guy may get better. He may get a better coach. But the 2 guys, great now. You're watching Jayden Daniels Monday night. It's like, yeah, that's all I need to see. They're only going to get better on the offensive line. They're only going to get better. Like, this is the start of it, and Washington can't control themselves. Their announcers can't control themselves. Dan Quinn. So I don't know. I don't know what it means for Caleb Williams, but I'm finding myself with Caleb, and he's better than Bryce Young. I'm not saying it's that, but I am finding myself 1 year later saying the same stuff. Well, he's got to get the right coach. He's got to get a better offensive line. So I said about Bryce Young. And I think Caleb's much better than Bryce Young. But I mean, Dan Quinn on the ascension of Jayden Daniels.
I definitely understand, like, our fan base has been waiting, for the franchise QB. And but I also want Jayden feeling any ghosts, making sure he understands there's only one name on the back of that jersey, and that's for him. And I don't want any comparison or any of the other stuff. I think it was the Teddy Roosevelt quote, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, but it's really hard when you do what we do to watch Jayden and watch Caleb. And, like, it's not subtle or nuanced. It's, like, really accurate, not accurate. No turnovers, lots of turnovers. Great judgment, not great judgment. Like, it's getting like last year, it's getting really wide really quickly. J-Mac with the news.
No.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line.
One of the things I love, Colin, is we start talking about these games on Monday for the upcoming week, and then stuff just continues to happen all week. So we're going to start here with the Philadelphia Eagles, Colin. 2-1, but have made some poor decisions by their head coach the last 2 games, okay? Eagles, big schedule, tough schedule. Colin, some things are happening right now. And in a recent podcast appearance, former Eagle Chris Long, who carries a lot of weight in Philadelphia, was very critical of Nick Sirianni's decisions in clutch situations.
I like Nick. I think Nick has done a good job. No, really, I do. It's just right now he's kind of under a microscope because of the decisions he's making.
Yeah.
He's not even calling the game.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. It's like you got to own the feeling of the flow of the game. And to me, I said on my pod, I would give him a mirror. Look in it. This is not the same team, certainly not yesterday, that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, where you're going to score 40 points a game. You have to sometimes lay up. And when you got Saquon Barkley, you got to give him the damn ball. You saw what happened yesterday. Any 3-yard gain could turn to 70.
You know, so here's what's funny. Right? We have kind of laughed this year that Sam Darnold has become what I thought he would become, right? And so he finally needed the perfect fit. Now I think the bubble will burst eventually. Could burst in Lambeau this weekend. I think Green Bay is very good. But fans disappear when they're wrong. We have to do a show. So when Nick Sirianni got the job, I said on the air, based on 2 sources, he was not ready for the job. I was told he could be a good coach, but he's not ready. And then he had the press conference that was humiliating. And then he started slowly. And I was right. And then he gets Shane Steichen, and everybody's like, you don't know what you talk about, guys, unbelievable. And now again, we're going back to pre-Steichen calling the plays. Is that this was always the thing. Like Freddie Kitchens got a head job in Cleveland. He was not ready for the job. I mean, that guy in San Francisco when Harbaugh left, Jim Tom Sula. The opening press conference was a disaster. There are coaches that get fired. They're ready for the job, but circumstances, like Frank Reich did a really good job in Indianapolis and got fired by an impulsive owner, and they've never really kind of recovered, right? And I love Steichen. But with Nick, and this doesn't happen very often, it may be every 3rd coaching cycle, every 3rd year, a guy gets a job, but he's not ready for it. Now, that doesn't mean he can't grow into it. Shane Steichen stays 1 more year. Maybe he sponges more information. But it does feel like with Sirianni, we are getting back to the press conference, the pre-Shane Steichen, where we're just not sure. Eagles, Philly fans, Philly media, we're not quite sure he's a head coach. But they have so much damn talent. A-plus GM, A-plus owner, super talented quarterback. Again, you can fool. I could win a few hands of poker playing with a poker pro if I got great cards. But eventually, over 8 hands, 10 hands, 12 hands, I'd get humiliated. If we're getting to a point now, like, people are questioning, is he a head coach? Brandon Staley, we figured it out.
That's the perfect comparison.
He just was not a head coach.
You could see it early with Staley and the Chargers, and everybody saw it. But they got lucky, got to the playoffs.
They weren't winning enough.
Job. The next year, it flipped, and it was over. They fired him midseason. I'm not saying that's where Sirianni's headed.
But let me ask you
Colin,
this.
Things are not. You don't hear Chris Long, a very respected Eagle. It's one thing if you and I call out Sirianni. It's another for Chris Long to go out there when they're 2-1.
Ask yourself this. So we had questions about Brandon Staley early, but they did get to the playoffs. Yeah. And then it crashed. Could I not argue at the end of last year, Philadelphia crashed?
Oh, no, they were 10-1 and then cratered. It was awful.
So they did a Staley. Yeah. They just have better players, a top owner, at the time considered a top GM. They just had a better infrastructure. But Philadelphia did a Chargers where there was like mutiny in the locker room, like players. By the way, we heard a story that Sirianni and Jalen Hurts struggled.
So in this week,
it's got a Chargers Staley feel to it a little, but they just win more because they had so many good quality elements.
There's a lot of injuries in Philadelphia this week. Colin, if they lose to Tampa, okay, and we know that people are out on Sirianni 2 straight weeks, I just wonder, man, dude, Monday morning, are we talking about, hey, is Bill Belichick the next coach of the Eagles? Hey, I think that's a perfect fit. That's a great job for Belichick. Great city, passionate, a lot of talent. That division's not great. Belichick could dominate with the Eagles, Colin.
Remember, Brandon Staley, for a year, he was smart, good-looking guy. He had a plan, but it was by year 2 and 3. By year 2, he started going against his plan. Remember, he was like, go for it, guy, and then he started punting, and you're like, oh, he doesn't even believe in his plan anymore. That was your fastball. Now you're not throwing your fastball. And so Sirianni, it's all my magic with Jalen Hurts. It's like, now we hear a story that Jalen Hurts and Sirianni, like, struggle. Like, that's your fastball.
And just like in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and Peterson, I'm sorry, guys. Nobody's moving off Jalen Hurts. You're not doing that. At least not this year.
No.
If it continues, who knows? But all right, let's get to the next story. Dallas Cowboys. Rough 2-week stretch for the America's team. CeeDee Lamb in particular. He got stripped by the rookie inside the 10-yard line. The kid Wiggins made a nice play, and then was arguing with Dak Prescott on the sideline. Lip readers out here are saying he was, I'm open, get me the ball. Anyways, CeeDee Lamb kind of apologized for his actions yesterday.
As for me and my performance, I expect a lot out of myself, more than anyone could put on me. And quite honestly, I felt myself, and obviously I felt the team just as far as producing and being that game-breaker player for the team, and obviously the guy that they can lean on. And I kind of let the game get to my head a little bit, but in the same sense, I knew what I can do. I knew what I bring to the table, and I know what I can do on that field.
No, I mean, he's owning it. I'm good with that. He owns it. He's not being delusional. He's like, I got in my head. By the way, 3 hours a week. You have to play with intensity. You lose your head. Guys, it's okay.
You do 3 hours a day. You don't lose your mind.
Well, I'm not getting tackled and beaten down.
I can tackle you if you
I say I don't want my head coach or quarterback